We laugh. We cry. We learn. But really, what doesn't kill you makes you better at managing clients and everyone. I'm Morgan Friedman, and this is Client Horror Stories.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the latest episode of Client Horror Stories. Very excited to have Cordell Robinson with me today. How are you, Cordell?
I'm doing great. How about you?
I'm doing great, and I'm so happy the internet is working. Uh, I really enjoyed our Get to Know You call a few weeks ago, and I'm excited that the time is finally here for our episode. So I have my coffee with whiskey in hand, and tell us all about your craziest client horror story ever. We're all ears.
Oh my gosh. And I'm not gonna go to like details so we identify like where. So I was working on a client site, and this was some years ago, and there was a person that was, and they're retired now, but they were in charge of basically managing compliance for the organization. Like they were like at the top level. So they basically they reported to the CIO. And so this person was extremely picky about like every little thing, like when it came to documentation, when it came to like how findings were written, and they had to be a certain style, a certain way, and then trying to close vulnerabilities and findings was an entire like
Okay.
strenuous process. And so everyone would always like be running around scared of like this person every time like they would send an
Okay.
email or there would be a call that we would be discussing systems. Everyone would be on pins and needles because they're like, oh my God, this, they're gonna like almost like they were gonna like kill them or something. It was like crazy. Like people were like so scared. And I was like, this is like really insane. So it was a stressful project, to say the least, but I worked through it by just trying to figure out, okay, what are the ways to, keep this person satisfied? And so it's just basically like,
So, so
mhm.
I'm going to pause you for a second before we hear how you have them satisfied. What was it that made everyone so scared about this person? Like, would he scream with a big presence? Did people tell stories about terrible things he did? Explain the fear a bit.
Yeah, so people would talk about like horror stories of like encountering this person, and they would be afraid that they would not get their systems authorized if they piss this person off. And I'm like, there's a separation between personal and professional. So
Yes.
let's keep that separate. But like they couldn't do that. And so they were like afraid for their jobs, basically. Like actually one person did get fired from his job because he did stand up to the person, but he did it in an unprofessional manner. So
Ooh.
I mean, he was justified in standing up to that person, but he should have done it in a more professional manner.
So, by the way, this is an important detail. I'm excited to dive in because we've done almost 100 episodes now, and we haven't had an episode where there's a scary figure everyone is scared of.
Mhm.
And just based on that detail, it's a really powerful insight where someone stood up correctly. They were right. This person is being an asshole and difficult, and you need to stand up. But sometimes when people like fight the good fight, they fight it in the wrong way.
Right.
Like instead of I've seen it so many times where people fight the good fight, but they like exaggerate the case and they make up things. I'm like, no, 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 no. If you're like serious professional for about it, you'll win. But because they're all over the place and they're unprofessional, they're fighting, they ultimately lose, even if they're justified.
Exactly, because what happens is they let their emotions and personal feelings
Yes.
get involved,
Yes.
and then that's the problem. I mean, you can't do that in business. You can't. You have to get rid of your personal emotions, and it's just the fact of what it is, and just state what it is in a professional manner. So you can't, call
Yes.
people, out their names, and
Yes.
say things like
And
that.
but by the way, I love your plan. And by the way, this hasn't come up in an episode before, so I'm so happy it's coming out now. That a large part of being a professional is you're being paid to keep your emotions under control. It's like the
Yes.
key unwritten part of the job that no matter how stressful bad things get, you need to be cool, calm, focused on solving the problem. And it's hard because we're just
Yes.
human.
Yep. It's super hard because emotions are flying around. And so if
Yes.
everybody around you is
Yes.
like full of emotion, then you're like, how do I navigate this? This is a lot. So it was so crazy and interesting. I kind of lay low through the radar, but I would voice my opinion, but in a manner of like, I would pay attention, I would step back,
Yes.
take a breath, and then come up with my responses in a professional manner. Cause I'm like, I don't want to lose my job, but also I need to call it out.
This is such good advice. I'm happy we're discussing this because it's really, really hard to not react in the moment. Someone's telling lies, they're insulting you, they're being cruel. There's this human instinct to be like, no, 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 no. But in the corporate world, that is a losing strategy. Instead, you want to control yourself, go get a drink, take a break, end the meeting, and then figure out, okay, what is the best way to expose this and fight this when you're calm and collected?
Mhm. Like, sometimes it's like knee-jerk reactions are always a big mistake in corporate.
Yeah,
Always.
I love the phrase. Knee-jerk reactions are always a big mistake in corporate. Love it. Okay, so now this guy has this interesting reputation. People are scared of him, but also when they try to stand up, because people stand up in these
Mhm.
like not ideal, unprofessional ways, like they don't win. Okay, so now I understand the situation.
Mhm.
So what happened with you and this guy?
So, with me, we did have one contentious conversation, and I think it was one of the few times in my professional career that I had to really keep my mouth shut and just take it in and come up with my response, a delayed response later, to make sure that I was accurate, and that, at the end of the day, I wasn't gonna like lose my job over, saying, hey, calling some things out. So,
Wait, I just wanted to. You threw out a point in passing that is great. You said I had to take my time to make sure I was accurate, and that's a really good point because I think a lot of lesson that people never learn or learn too late in corporate America is the importance of being accurate
mhm,
for a few reasons. Because what the way these political situations often play out in my experience is if you're criticizing someone, even if you're right and justified, if you're wrong on the smallest little thing,
mhm,
then the other side is going to like find a minor detail, even if it's irrelevant, that you're wrong, and you just have to be like, no, 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 look, he's completely wrong. He makes
yeah,
and use that to discredit you.
exactly. And that's what this person would do all the time to people. And I just thought it was like insane. I'm like, it is not like it is not that serious for you to be treating people this way. I mean, the way that they would talk to people was unhinged, like just belittling people and just saying outrageous things, actually. And, everybody just took it. And I was like, this is insane. Like, I was like, I am not going to sit here on this phone and have this person talk to me sideways, and then that's it. Like, no, we're gonna let's have an adult conversation, and let's, hash this out, and let's come up with solutions. So, because this person, love to just always find fault and beat up on people, and, oh, this is wrong, and this is wrong, and this is wrong. And I'm like, okay, you have to understand that nothing is perfect. People aren't perfect. Things aren't going to be perfect. There's guidelines and things out there. We're following guidelines and rules. they get changed and all those things happen, right? Have some type of understanding. But it was like no type of understanding. So I was like, okay, that's fine. What I'm going to do is whatever our interaction is going to be, it's going to be strictly what it is. And if you have an issue with it, let's discuss just the issue with it. And that's it. When you go off the rails and begin to insult and things like that, then I'm like, pause. Let's not, go into insults because it's unnecessary for us to do that in this setting. Let's talk about the solution. Hmm.
So, okay. So you're dealing with this asshole that would just go off the rails, insult, humiliate people needlessly. You decided, okay, I'm now going to manage him and control
Hmm.
him so that we stay on the topic and nothing else. So when I'm sure after you decided this, he still tried to insult, political, off the rails. Were you able to successfully control him and keep him on track?
It was because every single time, like the insults and things would come out, I would pause and I would be like, I don't think that is relevant to the conversation that we're having right now. The conversation that we're having right now is, the whatever that topic was. I can't say it because
Yes.
of sensitivity.
Yeah, of
You
course.
know, so let's continue this conversation so that we can come to a resolve on some solutions so that this mission is successful. And so we go on and talking, and then insults again, and I'm like, okay, let's get back to getting this done instead of getting spinning our wheels and our time focusing on, well, this is bad and this and all these things, like when you don't really understand what's really going on here because you're located in one part of the country and we're located in another part, so we're not even in the same office, so you don't even know what's really going on. You just know via emails and phone calls. So you can't dictate a lot from that, right? You're not sitting there day to day. So let's chill and let's figure out a way for the solution because extending that energy is too much.
But
So,
by the way, I want to make another comment on what you said about you being in different parts of the country.
mhm,
I've often found that there are all these people, a shockingly huge amount of people that in person are like really nice and sweet, but as soon
mhm.
as it's all online, like you're just a face on a screen, words behind a keyboard, like their inner asshole comes out.
Yes, it it does. And
So
that's so crazy because I can kind of tell you another story on how I kind of flipped the script on or built a relationship. I was working with a team out in California. Great, amazing team. And when I first met them, it was virtually. And so there was a lot of contention and a lot of contention and tension on the calls. And I'm like, this is crazy. So I said, you know what? I'm going to go out there and meet them. So I booked a flight. I flew out there for 2 weeks, sat with them in their office for 2 weeks, worked with them, got to know them as people, as humans. So beyond work, just getting to know them as humans. And so then after that, once I went back home, we had our calls, everything was nice and smooth because we had built that in-person relationship. So a lot of times you have to kind of like meet the person in person, face to face, to really kind of build that relationship, especially if they have a chip on their shoulder or there's whatever they're going through. Because sometimes the people are going through some things and they're just angry. And so
yes.
they are lashing out. But like if once you meet them in person, they get to know you as a person, then they're not going to put that energy off on you. But if they
But
don't know you, they're going to probably do that.
I love the story within the story, and I've definitely found the same in my career.
Mm,
That for big projects, big clients, when I've never met them, it's like worth the cost of a plane ticket because
mhm.
that even just a few hours together in person, you get people at such a deep level, and not just will you get them, they'll get you. So it makes it so much easier to work with them virtually thereafter.
Yep. So true.
Um, and by the way, there's a funny footnote here. I
Hmm.
just recorded a Client Horror Stories episode about a week ago. It's not yet live, but it'll go live shortly before your episode, where
Hmm.
someone had the exact opposite
Hmm.
story, where they were working with someone and or a team, and it was like nicest, greatest people online. Then she flew to their headquarters after like 5 years of working with them, and in person, complete horrible, terrible people. The opposite of being online. And I think even though these stories seem like they're opposites, they both have a common denominator. And the common denominator is, for better or for worse, people are really different online than in real life. So
Crazy. But it's
yes,
true.
so
I
I
mean, we experience it all the time.
yeah. I always like the memes about like trolls online,
Hmm.
about how it's like normal, humble people, and then they get online and they hate the whole universe. And there's a corporate analog to that, to that as well. And in a way, virtual working like this, because everyone, better or worse, is so different online than in real life. It's a really test and training of our own empathy. Like, okay, how can we understand, know, feel, work with these people who are so different that I'll never know the real story behind them?
True. And I mean, and that's, I think, is a big thing with like, client customer relationships, is building that rapport. So that in person and virtual, it's like building that so that you don't have these horror stories that we have, right? So you have to build those relationships and like talk to people as people, because there's, I think from
Totally.
different generations, there's different types of levels of respect and how people communicate, right? So that's one of the things. And I think like if you just come at someone very authentic and very real, it's not going to be an issue. And also be
Oh,
fearless, because I don't think anybody should be afraid of someone else. That's
true.
ridiculous. Why be afraid of another human? Like, that's crazy. You shouldn't fear anyone, live in fear and fear some other person and all that. That's like insane. So I think that, and then there are some people that like to like scare people and be like that, the boogeyman and the monster. But sometimes you have to like, you know, talk to them directly to.
I I like I like your advice. Be fearless. I think it's true, and I agree with what you're saying 100%. It leads me to wonder. Like, I feel like now I'm fearless, but when I was 21, I was very scared of a lot of things. So I think an interesting question is, how do we teach or encourage people 20 years younger than us in order to have that sort of confidence to push back against bad behavior?
So I think we should communicate with them more and collaborate with them more and be more collaborative as a people than more like, I don't even know what the word would be called other than that, but like, because I think what happens is there's this standard or this culture that's out there that like, this is the boss, and you got to be afraid of the boss and like all this stuff, and it's like, no, you don't. You don't have to be afraid of them. You should respect them, right? Because there's a difference between
Yes.
fearing somebody and respecting them. There's two totally different
Yes.
things. And I feel that if you are trying to get respect out of fear, that's not real respect. You should get respect out of, because you are a good leader. So that's how
Yeah.
yeah.
I I agree with that. I agree with that. It's interesting to me how often leaders, CEOs, executives
Mm.
use fear as a pressure tactic to get people
Yep.
to do things.
Mm.
Because for me, like in my experience, fear, like making people scared, backfires more. Because, for example, if people are doing what they need to do out of fear,
Mhm.
then they'll never get emotionally engaged. They won't get excited. They
Mhm.
won't commit to the cause in a deep way, and thus they'll do much weaker and worse work.
Yep. That's so true. That's so true.
I think just brainstorming on it, I think even though fear is such a bad strategy to get people to do things, I feel like people, like managers and executives, use it all the time because it's so easy. It's much, much easier to motivate people by fear than to
Hmm.
figure out how do you incentivize them, how do you excite them, how do you make them want to do the work.
Right. Mm. Yeah, because it is harder to motivate them instead of just leading in fear. So it is
Yes.
so true. It is so true.
Okay. Great. So now to finish up with the original story.
Hmm.
So you had this difficult guy. You decided every time it got difficult, you would say pause. You would
Hmm.
break it, and you would be like, "Hey, let's get back on track," and don't make it personal, etc.
Hmm.
Did that work? Did he listen to you when you did that?
Yeah, it actually worked. And so then they were like,
Oh,
"Oh, you're the whatever their name whisperer," and I'm like, "No, I just wasn't fearful of that person. I'm not a special whisperer. I wasn't gonna like I wasn't going to go to work every day and and live in fear that, I'm gonna get cursed out or I'm gonna get this crazy email or I'm gonna get yelled at on a call or I'm like, I'm not no, I'm not going to deal with all of that. I'm going to have a conversation as an adult head on and figure out what is the problem, what is the issue, so that we can, get the job done and get the mission done because that's what it's about. It's not about being an asshole. It's not
there's
about terrorizing people because if you have a bunch of terrorized people, you're not going to get the work done as efficiently and as fast as if everybody is happy and enjoying what they're doing. It's totally different.
I remember once read an article by an old software developer named Alan Kay, and he
Hmm.
had an insight in the article. He said, a change of perspective is worth 80 IQ points. I always remember that, like being able to see things from other people's eyes, view problems from wildly different directions, basically makes you much, much, much smart, insanely smarter. And thinking about it now, I think there's a parallel insight we could make about being fearless. I would adapt and reframe Alan Kay's insight, and I would say being fearless gives you 80 IQ points more as well. Because when you're just by not being scared, suddenly you can charge on ahead and do all these things that no one else is doing, and thus get magical things done.
Because usually the those people that are like the scariest people are not that once you get to know them and talk to them. You just got to break that barrier.
Ooh, that's actually a good point as well. I've also seen that there are a lot of people who bark and bark and bark, but where there's bark, there isn't much bite. And in fact, I've often found the scariest people can be the quiet people in the corner because
Exactly. The
they're the
quiet
ones who
ones are
like
the ones that will destroy your life and your career.
no, 1,000%. I was gonna say the exact same thing because it was the ones that you never expect, where they're just observing, watching, scheming, and then appear out of the blue when you don't expect it. So actually, I like this more subtle reframing of it. It's not just don't be scared; it's that the people to be scared of aren't the obvious people you would think, like
Like,
the angry person screaming and insulting all the time. Like he's actually not the one to be scared of. It's the one who you don't even notice. It reminds me of this guy I once worked with who would scream and yell at everyone, and all the employees in the company. He would always say, "You're fired. Get out of here." He would just fire everyone every day. But in real life, no one was ever fired. Like a few hours later, he like every single time, 4 hours later, like, no, 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 we need you. I didn't mean it. And this would happen on a weekly basis to different people. So he's like, in my mind, the consummate example of the person screaming and threatening but where there's a lot of bark, there's no bite.
Just all the time. So yeah, then people like, and it's so funny, like so many people are conditioned to follow the path of fear. So
Yes.
when someone comes along that's fearless, then they look at you like you have three heads. Like, oh my gosh, you're gonna like talk to them? Yeah, I am. Why not? Like they're a human, they're a person. We're all human beings, we're all people. Like it's not like, okay, this person's earned this position and it's esteem and I respect that. I'm going to respect their position, their accomplishments and things like that. Of course I'm going to respect that because they work hard and they earned it. But I'm not going to allow you to just say crazy things either, or belittle or create unnecessary stress when it doesn't have to
Totally.
be that way. When let's just focus on the mission. I mean, I've led and managed so many different teams throughout my career. And if you go back and talk to each of the teams that I managed over the years, they will probably all say the same thing, and that I never led in fear. I led in reality. So if there was something wrong, I would bring it to everyone's attention. This is wrong, and we need to fix
Yes.
it. Who has the solutions to fix it? Even if I had a solution that's made them come up with solutions because they need to learn and grow. So I'm like, okay, now let's get to the solutions. There was no like I never yelled and all of that. I mean, there's times I would get annoyed when someone would do something absolutely ridiculous, like, come on,
Yeah.
that's come on. But I usually would have a sidebar conversation with them. I would
Yes.
never like call them out. I would, on the side and say, hey, what's going on? Because sometimes people have things going on personally that affects their quality of work. And then they need to talk to somebody so that they can shift their focus, get their focus right and compartmentalize so that they can get their performance back up to par. I mean, you never know what people are going through. And so, the people with that mentality of like, I'm going to scare people and be like the boogeyman is like a lot. It's like, why? And I think as time, I'm noticing as time going on, as we're transitioning into new management and things like that, I think that we're going into a different style, which is great, of less fear. I mean, it's still there. I see it in some organizations where it's still there, but in other organizations, it's more collaborative than fear. It's more, let's get the mission done than fear. But if you mess up, you still get reprimanded, right? Because you messed up, you get reprimanded and whatever consequences, that's valid, right? And then you take it because that's what it is. But for someone to constantly beat you down and beat you down and beat you down is unnecessary.
I I agree with that 100%. This makes me remember a little detail about my personality and my career, which is because
Mm,
I'm nice, collaborative, positive. All the time, people misinterpret that as weakness. So, like
mhm,
many times, I have employees who are wildly underperforming and doing
mm,
terribly, and because I'm not you do this or you'll be fired. I'm calm, I'm positive, work with them, try to improve. But then one day I'll just fire them, and
mhm.
all the time they never see it coming because
Yep.
they're like, "No, you're so positive and encouraging." I'm like, "Dude, we've been talking about your problems openly and directly and trying to improve them for a long time. Look at all our meeting notes. Like they haven't improved." And I think because people associate the scary guy with the one to fire them, but not like the nice guy in the corner. When you're the nice guy in the corner and you wield your strength, it often comes as a surprise.
Yeah. Full, actually, because it's shocking because it's unexpected when it comes that
Yes.
way. Yep. So,
To- Totally. That's great. And Cordell, this has been such a wonderful episode. I liked your little story, and also this led to our analysis of leading via fear, which every episode I try to get at least one new issue or one new topic out that had never come out before. So great lessons, great insight, and Thank you very much for your time.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
And everyone who's been watching, we hope you stayed to the end and enjoyed the episode as much as we have recording it. Until next time.